Welcome to BIV Today, the daily business program from the newsroom at Business in Vancouver. I'm Hayley Woodin. The promise of vaccines is the promise that we can once again meet together, that we can go back to work in a safe manner without worrying about our health and the health of our loved ones. COVID-19 has undeniably had a significant impact on labor and the way we work. Joining me today as my guest is the Minister of Labor in British Columbia, the Honourable Harry Bains. Minister, thanks so much for joining our program.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
I'd like to get a sense of what your ministry has been working on for the past few months, as well as what your priorities are going to be for the year ahead.
Well, my ministry, along with all other ministries, have been working together as a government to putting people first during this pandemic, because we firmly believe economy is people. And so if people's health and safety is protected, people are healthy, our workforce is healthy, it adds to the economic growth, it adds to recovery that we are all trying to push through. So I think that was our focus so far. But turning to my ministry in particular, for this year and beyond, our focus will be workers' health and safety at workplaces. At the same time, through employment standard, look at the different economy that we are facing right now, gig economy, precarious workers. And I think we are looking at to ensure that those workers enjoy the same rights as any other workers. Their health and safety is protected, that they are paid fairly, and that they are given the protection that they need, just like any other workers. Now, there are some gaps that have been, brought to the surface with COVID-19. One of them is paid sick leave or lack thereof. One of the first things we did was to provide job protected sick leave for workers during the pandemic, so that when they are taking care of themselves or having to go for a test and isolate and quarantine themselves, that their job is protected to go back to. And at the same time, it stopped the transmission of COVID-19 at workplace. So it helps the workers, it helps the businesses. Business will continue to operate, and the workers will continue to get the support that they need, and by staying away. But the gap was that many workers felt forced to go to work, even though they were sick with pandemic. And reason is that many of those workers cannot afford to take time off, and the workers are paycheck to paycheck. Many workers are in very high cost of living, especially in this region. So I think we are going to continue to work with the federal government to number one, to see what we can do to improve the sick leave provision that they brought in, thanks to our premier who championed the cause on behalf of all provinces and the workers, and thanks to the prime minister that who listened and put those provisions in place. But there are still gaps identified. For example, you have to lose certain amount of wages before you qualify. If you want to go and have it tested for a day, they need to take a day off, and you need to stay away while your test is coming. You're not getting paid. You don't qualify. So I think those are the areas that I will be working along with our premier, with our federal counterparts, to make sure that we deal with those gaps, so the workers who are sick stay home, stop the transmission at workplaces, and the businesses continue to operate and continue to help us in economic recovery. I'm, by the way, meeting with my counterparts, Interprovincial Minister of Labor, on March 1st, and with the Federal Minister of Labor. I will be highlighting that issue once again, to let's identify those gaps that are there now, and work together to deal with those gaps, so the workers who are sick can stay home, can afford to stay home, and their operation isn't at risk of losing the production, because it could go down if the transmission spread and many workers are sick. So I think it's going to be a win-win situation between the workers and the businesses as we move through this very, very tough times, and the business will continue to operate.
When it comes to some of those gaps that you mentioned related to paid sick leave, if they aren't something that Ottawa chooses to address for whatever reason, is there an opportunity for the BC provincial government to maybe step in with its own kind of made in BC plan?
Well, I think first it is a national emergency, and I think not only national, it's an international emergency. So I think we need to put a national lens on it, and I think all workers. Yes, we care about BC and BC workers and BC population, but I think the federal government, if they take responsibility, which is which will be Canada wide, then I think is a easier managed, and I think the program that they brought in was a good start. I think, as I said, there are some gaps that we need to deal with, and I think we will be continuing to pushing the federal government to make sure we deal with that issue. And the other gap is that it's only for 2 weeks, and sometime you may need a longer period to recover. So I think those are some of the gaps that we need to talk to our counterparts across the country and federal government to ensure that we have a plan that will address needs of the workers all across Canada.
You also mentioned some of the concerns around gig employees, gig workers, and how they're not necessarily protected or treated as other employees. What are some of the factors you're considering to ensure that workers of all kinds, including contract workers, are in fact protected in BC?
Yeah, as you notice, and I think recently we have seen the evolving nature of the modern economy, modern workplaces. It has created challenges both for businesses and for workers. And I think we as a government have a responsibility to ensure there's a balanced approach to this, to ensure that those workers enjoy the same rights and protection as any other workers, and the businesses continue to grow. And I think we need to consult those workers, consult those businesses to ensure that those workers are protected. And as you may know, that Parliamentary Secretary Adam Walker is appointed to give that responsibility to deal with the gig economy and precarious work. And I think we want to consult widely again on that, and then to ensure that whether you are skip the dishes or you're Uber driver or the other gig worker that you're involved and precarious work you're involved, and the businesses they are involved in that, I think we need to consult with you and make sure that the workers are protected, that they are not exploited, that they are not abused, and they enjoy the same health and safety and other protection. Because to me, workers' health and safety is key to grow the economy. It's key to have a business that is profitable. And I think that is why we need to make sure that those workers are protected, those workers are listened to, and we work with both sides to ensure that we make changes after listening, after consulting, that help the workers at the same time help the employer to continue to grow in our province.
I agree with you. I think certainly the last year has really showed us that connection between worker health and safety and the broader economy and our goals around economic growth. I'm curious, in your view, how well do you think employers have followed COVID rules and safety precautions during the second wave of the pandemic?
Well, I think most employer did. I think WCB under our ministry had played a key role. They stepped up to the plate by helping. I think there are about 32 different sectors in our economy that they help them devise their safety plans, sector specific, and then within that sector help those individual businesses to put together their own safety plan, working with the workers and the businesses to ensure that the workers are protected and their patrons are protected who come and cater to their businesses. I think we have made it clear through Dr. Bonnie Henry. Well, Dr. Bonnie Henry actually have guided us in this, and also the Minister of Health sent a very clear message. And I think most businesses adopt to that it is in their best interest to have a good safety plan that is visible, that is transparent, so that when their patrons come to their businesses, that they feel that they're safe, their health and safety is protected. They feel that the workers who are, whether they're, the restaurant worker, serving their table, that they're protected. So I think when they have confidence of their patrons, I think that's when business will continue to work and continue to grow. I think it is to my pleasure, I could say that the most businesses and the workers work together to follow the safety protocol. Of course, there are a few who always sometimes flaunt the law, and I think there are laws to go after them, and we have done that, as you probably know. It's in the media, and so I think WorkSafe BC, not only they helped them put together those safety plans, but they revved up the enforcement side of it as well. So I think since the pandemic, they have conducted 22,000, over 22,000 COVID-related inspections at workplaces. I think the idea again was to educate those businesses, educate those workers, work with them to deal with questions that they may have. And then if they don't, some of them don't, then there is consequences. So I think, in most cases, it has worked. It always is, whether it's a pandemic or not, there's always 1 or 2% of those who like to take advantage of the situation and don't want to play by the rules. But then there are laws to deal with them. And I think I'm happy the work that the Works at BC has done, the businesses done, and the workers have done. My hats off to businesses and especially those frontline workers who put their health at risk and their families' health at risk by going to work, provide us the services, produce the products that we need, and deliver them and transport them into our households. I think these are our heroes, and we cannot forget that, and we need to protect them as we move through it and then grow the economy. So, but we're not out of it yet, as you know, and I think we need to continue to be vigilant. We need to continue to help each other, work with each other, because together we are going to get out of this as the vaccines start to become available, and we follow the protocols both at home and at workplaces, and where we go shopping. I think we will come out of this better than most jurisdictions, and the results are before us already.
As vaccines roll out in BC and perhaps more workers return to their workplaces, what kind of guidance can employers expect from the provincial government around perhaps changing health and safety protocols once it becomes overall more safe for us to go back to work?
Well, I think they should work with WorkSafe BC, and that's the place to go to and ask any questions. And they should also go to provincial health officer's office if they have any questions related to that. And I think at the end of the day, it is in our best interest. It's in the interest of the businesses to make sure we follow the protocols until we are out of this. And until we are in new normal, we don't know what this new normal is going to look like, but it's up to us. It's up to us to design our future. It's up to us what we do today, what our tomorrow will look like at workplaces, at home, and within our communities. So I think, as I said before, most businesses have been very good, and my hat's off to them. And all workers have been very good. They have endured a lot. I think you hear a COVID fatigue. I think these are the workers who have been asked to do more, and then we ask them more after that, and then we continue to push them to do more. And I think they have come to the plate and stepped up to the plate, and they are, like I said before, have my admiration and our society's admiration, because they are the one who kept us going. They're the one who are going to help us recover through this and help us with the economic recovery as well.
There are a couple of other things I want to touch on related to the Ministry of Labour. The first is union certification and potential changes around that. Can you speak to what the ministry might be considering when it comes to changes related to labor relations?
Yeah, I think it's one of the probably one thing that is in many people's minds, whether they're business side or the worker side, how a worker can join a union. It is their constitutional right in our Canadian Charter of Rights and Protections. And then there are always debate, how do we achieve that? How do we help those workers to join a union of their choice without interference by anybody? And I think there always are two schools of thoughts. One is that there should be automatic certification after a certain number of cards are signed, applications are signed to join a union. But then there are arguments from the other side. People are saying, well, there may be some intimidation involved in that. Maybe there's some coercion involved in that. And that there should be free vote. There should be a secret ballot vote after the application is made. So I think there are strong arguments on both sides. And I think we have seen when I appointed an expert panel who consulted widely with the labor, with businesses, with academics, legal community. They came back with the recommendations. It wasn't unanimous on that one area. Two members felt that the secret ballot should remain, but they recommended certain changes. And then the one member suggested that the secret ballot should not be required. I think that member put it is a second test. Why you push the worker to a second test? And I think there are strong arguments, but I can tell you my mandate letter is very clear that if there's going to be any changes legislatively in my ministry, that we consult widely, consult with all stakeholders, listen to all of them, and before I consider any changes. So I think that's what we will be doing. And I think also when we made changes previously to labor code, we want to see how that is working. And if those changes are sufficient to provide the protection to the workers who wish to join a union without any interference, or those concerns still remain there. So I think those are the area that I will be looking at. My ministry will be looking at before we make further changes.
One of the other elements in your mandate letter is this idea of restoring a compulsory trade system in British Columbia. I'd like to know first what that would involve, but also why doing so would be important. I know I've heard from industry that securing trade talent has been a significant issue for many employers.
Yeah, I think this is many people probably don't know. This particular area hasn't been talked about too much, except those who are involved in this. Other jurisdictions have that. We used to have that, and we don't have it now. I think the idea behind is that those who are providing us service in trades, in construction especially, who are building our homes when we are buying our home, when you're looking at electrician, are they qualified electrician? When you're looking at plumbers, when we're looking at carpenters, when we're looking at refrigeration technicians, are they qualified? And I think we don't have that requirement here that everyone who does that job must have a certification. There are cases I've heard that there's a one qualified person, then there could be 10 others who are not fully qualified, according to many who argue in favor of this. And then the work is done. So I think it's improved the quality and also to improve our skill pool in the province, because we lack skill pool in province, and that actually is an impediment to investment in the province. I think you need investor to look at what kind of skill pool we have here. Do they have the skilled labor available when they want to invest heavily into our province? And I think answer is that we are not there yet. I think that's why through CBA, we have mandated with the taxpayer dollars that there should be certain amount of apprenticeships in those trades. And also the compulsory trade is also argued by both sides, actually, by the businesses and by the workers, that there should be some kind of a mandatory requirement that everyone who provide those services, especially those skill category areas, that there's some kind of requirement, mandatory or compulsory, you call it, that they are required to have some kind of certification in order to provide those services. So we are looking at that. Again, we will be consulting it. There's a parliamentary secretary responsible for that, and I'm working very closely with the parliamentary secretary to ensure that we listen to everyone, we hear from. We already have heard from few already, but we will be consulting more before we make that change.
A final question for you, Minister, that sort of takes us beyond the pandemic. There are a lot of lessons we can take away from COVID-19, especially around health and safety, but also around worker protection and equality in the workplace. What are some insights or lessons you hope carry forward beyond the pandemic that employers and industries continue to consider once we're through this?
Well, one thing, I think my previous life and since I became the Minister of Labor, and I think my government also is with me on this, that the workers' health and safety is paramount in order for our businesses to grow and be profitable. And that's why I think the changes to the Workers' Compensation Board we brought in and more are needed. And I think we will be consulting again. What are those areas that we need to improve so the workers' health and safety is protected, so that we don't have to deal with the claims after they file a claim, after they injure. So I think we need to protect them, have a strong prevention measures in place, so that the workers don't get hurt. The worker go to work and come home in the same shape that they went in. And that is good for the economy, good for the workers, good for our society. I think anything less should not be accepted and is not acceptable to me. And then I think if the workers are sick at work, there are many areas. Asbestos is one area I think we want to deal with, and make sure that there are qualified people who deal with asbestos removal and to deal with anywhere there's asbestos in our buildings, so that the workers are safe. At the same time, I think there's a car alarms going outside. Is that causing a problem?
No, it's okay. Just, I think you can keep going.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think so that is another area we will be looking at to make sure that the workers' health and safety protected when they are dealing with those deadly substances at workplaces like asbestos. And just to put things in context, almost half the deaths every year that the worksite BC is dealing with comes from exposure to asbestos. That happened 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. So I think, even if we put those measures today, it's going to take another 15, 20 years before we see no deaths related to asbestos exposure. So I think that is also one of my priority. The workers and the employer should expect that is something that we would be doing. And again, we want to make sure that the minimum wage, as we started to make sure that minimum wage is gradual, is predictable, and that would provide certainty to the businesses. At the same time, the workers are paid fairly in such a high living cost of area, in especially Lower Mainland. I think those are some of the areas that we are looking at going beyond. But all of those would be through consultation. Minimum wage, we already made decisions. Sorry to come back to this year, June 1st, our minimum wage will go to $15.20. And then we will link it to the the rate of inflation. And I think that's one area where workers will continue to be paid fairly. At the same time, businesses will have certainty that they ask for. I think they were looking for certainty when we had the panel put together who were consulting with them. So workers' health and safety, the fair laws, labor laws in the province that serve the needs of the employers, at the same time to make sure that the workers' rights are protected, their health and safety is protected. Those will be the principle that will guide me during the remainder of our mandate of 4 years.
Minister Bains, thank you so much for coming on our show to share with our audience a little bit about your priorities for the year and years ahead. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. But once again, I just want to emphasize, we're not out of the pandemic yet. Let's continue to be vigilant. Let's not be complacent. We're not out of it yet. Let's continue to work with each other, support each other, our neighbors, our workplaces. And once we have the vaccine in place, and I think we could take a little relaxed kind of a time at that time. But now is not the time. Now is the time to continue to be vigilant, continue to support each other, continue to follow those protocols, safety protocols by our provincial health officers, because together we are going to get out of this. So thank you for having me.
That is the Honorable Harry Bains, Minister of Labour here in British Columbia. And this has been BIV Today. Thanks so much for joining us. Our show will be back with a new episode tomorrow.